Hi, everyone. This is season 10, The Dynamic Duos, and I am so fortunate to have with me today Gevura Davis and her husband. I'm going to call you Rabbi Davis out of respect and a proper way of communicating with people. I had met Gevura. I think we did some momentum trips together,
Yes.
and then just recently we did a Project Inspire retreat together. And through talking to her, I saw that she does a lot of stuff. Now, I mean a lot of stuff with her husband, right? So they are definitely the dynamic duo together. I up until now I've been interviewing people that might have done social media together in different ways and forms, but this couple do a lot of kiruv, a lot of community work together, and we're going to try to get to know them a little bit. So first of all, what I'd like the two of you to introduce yourself, say where you're from, and then we're going to get into perhaps how the two of you actually met, because you're not even from the same country. So go for it.
Even the same continent.
Right, same continent.
Yeah, you can do it. You start.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Jordana, for having us, and thank you to all of your amazing listeners. I'm Gevura Davis. I grew up in mostly suburban Atlanta, moved to Israel when I was 20. 20? Yeah, 20. Lived in Israel for 5.5 years, then had the honor and privilege of, believe it or not, moving to Kansas City, Kansas. You probably haven't had that many interviewees from Kansas City. And we were there for 8 years. And now we've been in Philadelphia for 8 years, where we run Aish Philadelphia with our 5 kids in the family business.
In the family business. Okay, Rabbi Davis, how about you? Where are you from originally?
So I grew up in a seaside town called Brighton. So quite often when I say that to people, they're like, oh, that's not London. And then they sort of like go a little blank. But basically, if you know the map of England, sort of like a triangle, London's near the bottom. If you draw a little line straight down south from London to Brighton till you hit the sea, that's it. That's Brighton. That's where my grandparents and great-grandparents moved in, I don't know, 80, 90 years ago. I don't know exactly. And that's where I grew up. Beautiful seaside town, fairly small Jewish community. And then I went to Manchester University for 4 years. And it was there where I started to become more observant and start hanging out and learning with the rabbis. And ultimately ended up going to Chappelle's and staying to learn Eretz Yisrael for 6 years. Met my lovely wife during the second year there, thank God. And then, as Gevura said, we spent 8 years in the community code of Kansas City. And then we moved to Philadelphia. We were originally with Aish HaChaim. And then in 2018, Aish HaChaim and Aish, towards the end of the year, we basically merged the two entities together. So it's officially Aish HaChaim is the name of the organization that we work for now, which is, so it's Aish HaChaim and Aish, which had a deep history of working in the Philadelphia Jewish community.
Wow. So you both met in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
So let's hear. Okay, I know I had the people are getting used to this already from listening from the other episodes about shidduch dating and being set up. So I'm assuming that's what happened with the two of you. You two were set up
because we have the same last name. Not related.
Oh, that is so cute. I didn't know your maiden name was Davis.
Orthodox Davis, and I kept my maiden name. And
it's true.
We got engaged on our 9th date. Believe it or not.
Well, I was like 23 and I was learning Chappelle's, and I kept calling up one of the Rebbetzins. Actually, was my rabbi's wife, and asked if she knew of anybody, and she kept saying, "Are you still 23?" Because like in the Bal Tshuva world, like sometimes it takes people a while to get themselves together and start dating. And I said, I'd like to ideally somebody a year or two younger than me. I think that would be most appropriate, because like if you look at my wedding photos when I was 24, I look like I was probably about 17. So I thought it was probably a good idea somebody younger. And she, around my age, maybe a little younger. And she kept saying, "Are you still 23?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm still 23." Eventually, called up. She's like, "Well, there was this young lady that just came over for Shabbos meal. I don't know if it's if it's Shia. Her name's Gevura Davis." I'm like, well, that's weird in two senses, because like Gevura, like who's of her? That's a weird name. And Davis, well, that's my name. So like, okay, like I don't know, let's just go for it. Like you're young and excited. And so we went and we had our first date in Parpar on Rechav Herzl. I think it's not Parpar anymore. It was a little coffee shop, and I got a mint tea and Gevura got a bottle of water. and the rest is history. But actually, there was a good story from our first date. Do you want to tell that, Gevura?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to try
Yes.
to tell it very quickly, even though it's a very humiliating story. I think people seem to find it interesting. Okay, so I was on, in essence, my first real like shit up date with someone who really could have been like my potential husband, and I was used to like high school and college sorority dating, and on this shit up date, I realized that it's really very different. And it's sort of, like in my mind, I kept saying like, how do you know if you could marry someone? Like, that's such a crazy thing, like to marry someone from my perspective, from where I was coming from. So I did something that I've only done once, and I haven't done it. I didn't do it before, and I haven't done it since. And I'm not 100% sure. I'm pretty sure in Judaism you're not supposed to do this, but I didn't know that at the time. I don't know. There's different opinions, but I asked God for a sign. Okay. And the main reason that we're not supposed to do it, I think, is because it's hard to interpret God. God is always speaking to us, but we shouldn't like use it in decision making because it's hard to know exactly, what the sign is. But I got a very, very big sign that I very sincerely asked God for a sign, and I'm pretty sure I got it. By the way, we're about to celebrate our 20th wedding anniversary, so this is 20 years ago.
Wow.
I asked God for a sign. I said, this guy seems really cute, really nice, but I don't know, like, we're very different. We still are pretty different until I stole his midlife crisis, but we'll get into that soon. Okay. We're pretty different in a lot of ways. But I asked God for a sign. Now, pause. 10 years before, Jordana, I don't know if you know this world, but maybe some of your audience does. I went to a pretty secular Jewish summer camp where the essence of the camp was who the cool counselors dated. Like, if you were in the know, I mean, that was like all the fun, all the drama that we had, was which counselors were professing their love for who. So I had the honor and privilege to be in Jody Smiley's cabin, and she was dating none other than Elliot Throne, the king of cool. Like, the whole camp revolves around Elliot Throne. I wonder, maybe one day some of them will see this and they'll have no idea the impact that it made. So one day, the official rule was that there was a girls' side of camp and a boys' side of camp, and that boys were not allowed into the girls' bunks. So one day, Elliot snuck in while we weren't there and surprised Jody, and he wrote down the lyrics of the song Fields of Gold.
By Sting.
Mm-hmm. By Sting. Now, this is like before Spotify, before you could Google lyrics. This is a long time ago where you had to listen on a cassette and write in a spiral notebook the lyrics. So he put them above her bed on the wall. And when we got back from our activity and we saw them, the page, everybody was like so excited. It was like, oh, love. So me, being the dramatic FOMO person that I am, always like being in the middle of things, I stood on Jody's bed, in fact, and said the following: when I grow up, the person I'm going to marry is also going to talk to me about, profess the lyrics of that song to me. Okay? It was like 10, I was probably 12 at the times, and I was, how old was I? I was 21.
21
when we met?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this, a long time later. And I had forgotten about that. It's not like every year I was like, oh, I'm looking for my husband. He's singing Fields of Gold to me. I had forgotten about it. So maybe 20 minutes, or at least within an hour of when I asked God for this sign.
We finished our coffee in the water, and we're walking around Beta Kerem, which is the yeshiva, the neighborhood where Chappelle's actually is. Right. It's a beautiful, well-kept neighborhood in West Jerusalem. So we're walking around.
So, I think to understand how wild of a story this is, you have to talk about what yeshiva was like, and
we were learning all day, but basically, so the reason what happened then is I turned around and I said to her, "Do you know the song Fields of Gold?" Completely out of nowhere.
But so out of nowhere, because he was he's like a yeshiva guy.
Well, as it happens, I love Sting, still do. So that's the connection.
They're playing, by the way.
But the reason why I asked is because some guys had gone to another rabbi shir, somebody who's maybe, I won't say the name of the rabbi, but he's a bit out of the box, you could say. And then
but like a very black hat yeshiva rabbi.
But this rabbi said, the song "Fields of Gold" can help you imagine, help you with the imagery of Shir Hashirim, Song of Songs, and so I asked Gevura, what do you think about such a concept of using a secular song to help us understand words of Tanakh? That's how it came up. And then, unbeknownst to me at the time, she was like, "Oh my goodness me! Like Hashem's just shown me this sign.
Like we're getting married. It's exciting."
That's what you say that to him, Gevura.
I didn't tell him that, but I still 20 plus years later remember what it felt like for him to turn to me and say, "Do you know the song Fields of Gold? I want to share with you some of the lyrics."
So that was pretty much it. And I mean,
like in the context was just so wild. Like we were, in a very religious.
And I was ready to sort of like take the dating with Gevura like moderately slowly, but like I kept getting these calls from the Shadchanit, like she wants to keep moving things forward. She wants to talk about the we, like what would our life look like? And like things just like move really forward quickly, and then so like on the 9th day we were at the rabbi's home actually in Rabbi Rebbetzin that introduced us, Rabbi Myers, and we were walking back from Bayit Vagan to Har Nof, and I thought she wanted to propose to me. Now, there's another part of that story. We won't get into that today. But I thought she wanted to. So I said, "Look, I'm not proposing to you, but if I were to, what would you say?" And so she said, "Well, I'd say yes." I'm like, "Oh, wow. Okay, well, what should we do?" She's like, "Well, let's go to the co-cell."
I didn't say that.
She did.
Did I?
Yeah. So,
which, by the way, maybe that set the stage for 20 years later, our current habit, because, Bayit Vagan to Har Nof to the Kotel.
And then back to Har
Nof.
And then me walking back from Har Nof to Beit Kerem, it's, it's 10, 12, 15 miles. I don't know exactly.
Like normal people don't do that. Well, maybe.
So I said to Gevura, I'm like, well, it's pretty cold. It was December. And I'm like, Gevura, she still always forgets her coat.
That is true.
So she didn't have a coat with her. Of course, I grew up with like very disciplined parents who always made me wear a coat. And so I said, look, we should go get your coat. So we walked out to Neve all the way, if you know Har Nof, all the way down
from Bayit Vagan to Har Nof, which is far.
And she went up the hill, and I was standing there and waiting. I'm like, okay, I guess she's not coming back. Okay, I have to find somebody else. But lo and behold, she walked out, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes later with her grey duffel coat. And off we walked to the co-cell, and, about 3 a.m., and we don't remember the date, unfortunately, it's a chaval, but at 3 a.m., approximately, I proposed, and then we walked back, and she was, I think it was a lot for us. It happened fast, but, and then by the time we got back to Har Nof, it was already starting to get light, and so just as we were coming to the entrance of Har Nof, she's like, turn back now. Like, I don't want any of the rabbis to see that, like, I was out with a guy the whole night. That's going to give them the wrong idea. So that's, then Baruch Hashem, like, we got, we went on an international trip, England and America, met our parents-in-law, and we married in March 30th, Chaf Ches Adar, Adar base that year. And actually, I only discovered this or realized this recently, that Chaf Ches Adar base, Taka, was my parents' anniversary, and they're going to be celebrating 50 years on Chaf Ches Adar this year, and we're going to be celebrating 20. So
they celebrated 30 years of our wedding.
Yeah. Yes. So they have exactly the same wedding date as me. And it was even out of base that year. I saw their kasuva recently. So it's, these things, it's amazing how all these things is like Bashar and like small little things, like you see Hashem's yard always guiding you along the way. And like B'lian Hara, Baruch Hashem, like we felt that a lot. Sometimes harder things in life, sometimes happier things in life, but if we really open our eyes and we're truthful to ourselves and speak to our inner soul, like we have to always admit and recognize that actually these are Hashem's taps on our shoulders, where he's trying to give us messages and guidance. And so our only question really in this world is, are we ready to listen and hear those messages he gives us?
Right. Yeah.
Which is perfect for Purim.
Yes, 100%, 100%. But I mean, when you started off by saying about the words, Gevura, and then you're, Rabbi Davis, you're emphasizing even more. I can't believe it. I just love these things. If people would open their eyes to what we're talking about and just experience what we experience, I'll explain to you what I'm talking about. I was in Florida. I had told you I was in Florida this past week, and I met Yafa Palti for the first time.
That's a
Motzei
treat.
Shabbat. Yeah, and we were talking, and we were just talking. She says, the power of words, and I said yes, and I'm not married, so I had said that someone had told me 3 years ago on March 17th. They said everyone deserves happiness, and to me, it was just a switch in the language. Everyone told me, Jordana, you deserve, you deserve, you deserve. And I didn't listen to that. When they said I deserved, it wasn't penetrating. But as soon as somebody said everybody deserves, I was telling Yalfa, when one person said that to me, I was like, well, everyone deserves? Then maybe I'm everybody. And that, like, a light bulb went on from that one word. That one word changed everything. And then we were just schmoozing. And then I was telling her about this podcast. And I sent her this podcast when we parted ways. And she messaged me. She was like, I can't believe you sent me this podcast. The title of the podcast was the theme of what I was just talking about, the shir that I just gave tonight. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so powerful. And I find also when like you were saying, Gevura, like you were saying, oh, if I, when you were younger in camp, and like, oh, like that idea. I used to always say, now I'm going to be revealing something big that a lot of people don't know, but they'll know eventually anyway. I used to say in teaching, I've been teaching in the same school for 28 years. And when I first started out, when I was younger, I said, how am I going to know when to stop teaching? When am I going to know it's time to stop? Like, I don't want them to tell me. Like, you don't want to go and someone says, it's Jordana, you're too old. I said, you know what? When I have a student's child, that's going to be the sign for me to stop teaching. That's when I'm going to stop. Happens to be this year, for the first time ever, I'm teaching two different children. Two students of mine, I've taught their parents.
Yeah.
And it happens to be, just a few weeks ago, I told my school, this is it, I'm done. I'm not coming back next year.
Wow.
So, because I'm doing my other things, I'm doing the Olami and so on and so forth. But
school.
Yes, but isn't that crazy? I told myself the first year when I was teaching, I said, how am I going to know when to stop? And I said, when I finally teach one of my students' children, that's going to be my sign. Wow. But I didn't, I'm saying, that's the power of our words. People don't realize how powerful our words are and how they come through. You have to be so careful with words also. But it just, so when you start talking about that, that's the first thing that came to my mind.
You got your sign. Like, you got your sign.
Right, exactly. It's not like I said I wanted that sign, just same thing for you. It's not like you know what I mean? That's what we don't live by.
No idea. It was in such a different context,
Right. Yeah, 100%. Totally different context. So this is amazing. So now I'm going to ask both of you the same question. So I know you dated for a short period of time, 9 dates. What was it about each other that you liked right away? So, Gevura, you could go first. What was it about Rabbi Davis that you right away like, oh, this is, besides the sign?
Well, she asked you.
Probably kindness. Like, I could see like an inner goodness, and that to me is the most important quality in people. But also like someone who's understanding, someone who, like I was just saying, we were just talking to good friends of ours whose oldest child is starting to date now. And they had a list of what they thought mattered. And I said to them, I understand where you're coming from. But to me, I'm looking for two things for my kids. B'ezras Hashem, they should be healthy and well when they're in the right time. Like emotional intelligence. And they're like, well, what does that mean? And I said, like, being there for someone. Really like, and then the other thing is resilience. Because I think that we'd all love to think that everybody in life is going to, everything in life will go according to our plan, right? Okay. That what we think is best, but as we have been discussing, Hashem has Hashem's plan about what's best, and that's often very different. And so when we encounter the challenges of life or the plan B, C, D, E, F, Z's of life, will this person grow with me? And I saw that my husband, thank God he wasn't my husband at the time, but he was a person who was open to learning, open to growing, open to, no matter what life brought our way. And I mean, we had no idea what our life was going to be like, obviously. 20 years ago, it's very different than I think in certain ways than we envisioned, that like we would be together hand in hand, fully committed to each other. And that was really important to me.
Well, for me, I remember when we first sat down in Cafe Parpar, it just felt really comfortable. Like we sat down, we just started schmoozing. It just felt like we'd known each other for a really like a long time. And I think like it's just like souls reconnecting. That's what I remember. I mean, it's quite a while ago, and I haven't been asked that question for a while. But that, if I'm just trying to think back to that moment, I do remember thinking it feels very normal, feels very natural. And you know, Gevura and I, like we advise a lot of people on dating and try to help people shidduchim. And like I think that's one of the things I try and impress upon people. Like, does this just feel really comfortable? Like you guys are gonna, because you know it's a lot of time, it's a lot of life to live together.
Probably.
And like if you can feel comfortable from the get go and like just this is cool, like just like it's just like two souls uniting for one purpose, like then this might be it. Might not definitely, but like it's a good chance that this could be the one and this could work. So thank God, like Gevura and I always had that. I think that's why we didn't really date for so long.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
even though we
very
were
clear.
in a world where, like, you know, in the Bal Shuvas out there, they really get caught up in how the FFB date, and which is really tremendously not good. Actually, they really should not be dating like FFBs. They need to do it much for a lot longer and with more thought and care, because there's a lot more nuance. But nevertheless, I think it was just clear to it's just like this is it.
Yeah, like of course we should get married. That's how it felt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then how was it? Because you're coming from two different cultures, really. No?
Yeah, that's been that actually has been a bit of an issue over the years. Like even now, believe it or not, you know, one thing I've discovered living in America, there's thousands of words that we use differently. Like it's not hundreds, it's actually thousands, and expressions, and even like innuendo
Yeah,
from
this
like
morning
facial
you said-
expressions.
You said the Lou, and the people around you didn't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's really hard to deprogram actually, as much as I've tried to, and like my accent's faded, and you can probably tell, like it's definitely, some English people think I'm Australian or South African, and I don't sound English to English people actually. And I've even had Australians thinking I was Australian, which that to me find a bit weird. But nevertheless, like the language issue's been a bit of an issue, and yeah, just something the way of seeing the world. Like it is true. Like our formative years of where we brought up and how we see the world, like really do make us who we are. So as much as I am now American and being here for 16 years, not lived there for 22 years, like, yeah, it's interesting. I'm still pretty English actually. And Gevura's like a Southern gal. She was born in Texas. She was raised in Georgia, went to college in Georgia. So, you know, she's like really someone of the South in many ways, just that attitude. So very different. So, but I think it's okay. Like you don't have to put two people together who have exactly identical upbringings and backgrounds to like make it work. Like you need two growth oriented people who are willing to listen to the other and try and work on themselves. That's really the ikar, in my opinion.
Well, and I think it's interesting because besides being from different geographic regions, we we always used to joke that we could make like a sitcom, like a split side about how different our parents are. I mean, thank God they're all four amazing people, but like how they respond to, I don't think we should talk too much about it, but no, but they're very different.
Like when they get together, which Baruch Hashem is every once in a while, because my parents come over here fairly regularly, and so they are. Gevura's parents moved up to this region, like they live just a few miles from us, so that they've seen each other quite a few times in the last few years. So yeah, Gevura said like we could make a sitcom about like in-laws from England and America, like very English and very American sort of parents. Like it would be great,
and personality type within that. There's
a great 6-part series to be made for a good writer.
Yeah, totally. But I think that like it's interesting because what we both said that we liked about each other was like, yeah, you're my soulmate. It's comfortable. It's like we've always known each other. And I think that sometimes people think that means, and so that's because we're very similar. But I think you can have a soul connection with someone very different, and we still are very different. I mean, all people are different. You know, we come from different nature, nurture, environments, you know, circumstances, but that doesn't mean that you can't get along and build a life together. And, you know, this is like with coworkers, and I have certain kids that are very different than me. You can build a life and get along with people that are different than you and feel a soul connection. You just have to kind of learn to, I think a lot of it comes down to like understanding. That's why things like love languages are so popular, and the Enneagram, and just whatever modality you choose to sort of classify or understand human beings. I think what's sort of underlying that is that human beings are different, and we can't vilify and judge and sort of condemn, because obviously by nature, most people, my way is the way. And why can't you
Right.
do things the way I want to do them? And really
Right.
understanding that your brain works differently than me. Your soul is wired differently than me. And so, I mean, like with races, for example, like I would get there so late every time. And like there's been races, I think for the Philly Marathon this year,
Oh,
you had to like drag me
well,
up
first,
to bed.
before you're going right to the races, and people don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
So, yeah. So before we get into the races, Gvura, let me just sum up something that you had said, and I think that goes to what you had started with originally about the understanding and having the emotional IQ, because people are going to be different. But if your partner is somebody who's understanding, and if you're a person that's understanding, and you have a high emotional IQ, there's something to work with, and you're both growth oriented. So right. So I think now that we could transition a little bit into what I wanted to get to, and I know you guys have your little props coming up soon. Um, that what happens? I asked this question on each episode about traditions, especially for the two of you coming from two different continents, right? Sometimes it's important to do something together. A tradition is something that you want to bring together as a couple. I have said other episodes how my parents started taking up tennis together, but the two of you took something up together. Why don't you just share with us what you two do together besides your work?
Well, yeah, our work is our main.
Well, we both, during college used to run quite a bit, actually. Gevura has some journals that lie around the house, and sometimes the kids find it entertaining. Don't worry, I'm not going to embarrass you, but they find it entertaining to see what was going on in the brain of Gevura Davis, 18, 19, 20, 21. I think about once she got married.
It's pretty similar to my brain now.
So, like I recently found, she wrote this comment. She's like, I'm running 5 miles 4 days a week. That's what she wrote. And she thinks it was 5.
I think it was 4 miles 5 days. No.
Yeah, we can go look. But she was running 20 miles a week, which is really good.
Are you sure?
Yeah. And so she
4 miles. I used to run 4 miles at a time.
I used to run. I remember one time in college, I just like went out on a Sunday afternoon and just like started running. Like running and running. I just didn't stop. I actually never told Gevura this story, funnily enough. And my friends, and this was like before we had a cell phone, and like my friends in the college dorm, when I got back, like after about 2.5, 3 hours, they were like, "We were so worried about you. Like you went out for a run, you never came back." I'm like, I just kept going. I have no idea how long I was going for. They never watched. I didn't have a pedometer. I don't know how far it was, but I remember it being like that 2.5, 3 hours. I just feeling really good. And then I never did that again. Like I didn't think much of it. Just like what I felt like, when you're like 18 years old, just do stuff on the fly, like that day felt good. But I remember I did used to run around the parks. Definitely used to go jogging in college and lift weights and exercise. And then that carried on when I went to Chappelle's. Like there's a group of us that used to run during the lunch break in the Jerusalem forest. And I remember like being one of the better runners, but didn't think much of it. And then we got married. And Baruch Hashem, our first child was born within the first year of our marriage. And then I really didn't stop, and I really didn't run or ride bike at all, actually, for many years. And when we moved to Kansas City a few years later, we did get a treadmill. I used it periodically. But, we kept having more children, Baruch Hashem. Like we had basically, when our fifth was born, our oldest was 8.5. And so like our just hands were just full with kids. And then like a few years later, I remember I got on some scales. Like my youngest was probably like 2 or something. I'm like, whoa, really? That's interesting. That's how heavy I am now? That's surprising. I didn't know that. I was quite surprised. Haven't weighed myself in a long time. And I'm like one of those bad men that like don't really like going to doctors. And so I didn't really know what my weight was. And I'm like, that's kind of like I'm up to here, like, and it's not going further. I'm going to start running and trying to eat better. And so it was lot. It was very slowly, like, like I would literally start by running 1 mile. And I remember when I ran that mile originally, I used to get a stitch, like like your heart's on your side.
The little pain, yeah,
And
inside.
but I kind of stuck with it, and eventually I lost a few pounds, and then we moved. Then we moved to Philly like a couple of years after all this. And when we got to Philly, so we didn't have a treadmill, and I just started just running around the park, and where our office was with Aish HaChaim, there was a park nearby, and during my lunch break or whatever, a little sometimes just get out the door for 20-25 minutes, clear my hair, run around the park, come back, keep going walking. Then one day in 2017, my father-in-law, who probably was about 64, 65 at the time, he did a major shred. He lost a lot of weight, got really fit, and he started doing longer distances. He was running 10Ks. And we were away on vacation with him. He's like, you want to come out on 10K with us? With me? I'm like, sure. And so I was just about keeping up with this guy in his mid-60s. And I was probably still in my 30s at that time. Yeah, I was. But when I got home, I'm like, that's kind of cool. I'm going to do that again. So I started running 10K here and there, but no races, just by myself. Then I went to Israel in 2018 and met this guy called Ken Kurtz. Ken Kurtz sort of changed my life, to be honest. He was one of the trip participants in a momentum trip. Ken had run a few marathons. And that we went on the summer, and then we had a reunion in Circus 2018.
No, it was because you ran to the top of Masada,
Yeah, we ran up,
and you beat everybody.
No, we ran up Masada together. He beat me by a few steps. And he's like, listen, Binyomin, you really got to do a marathon. You got to train for a marathon. I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that. I never run in any race. The last time I've been in a race, honestly, that I can remember, it was I ran in a 400-meter track race in college for an mural day. And I remember coming 7th out of 8th. And the guy who was 8th was really not in good shape at all. I remember
when you were a kid, you were a very slow runner.
I was a slow runner, and running was not something I was happy about. It was something I did by myself to keep in shape, but that was it. So came home that night from the Cholamoid party, looked on the computer. When's the Philadelphia Marathon? It was it was about 7 weeks later. I'm like, okay, that sounds like a reasonable amount of time to train up, start running more. I'll do that. Signed up, and well, I went on to tell Gevura what my plans were, sort of announce what my midlife crisis. I decided this is my midlife crisis. So Gevura's like, oh, I'll do that too. And so she's like, sign me up. I'm like, you sure you want to do that? Gevura was, even though she'd run a lot,
I hadn't run.
Motherhood and work had really taken its toll on her. She hadn't been running or exercising a lot,
no, not at all.
So whatever, we signed up, and that day I ran 3:36, which is pretty good marathon time.
You have to explain to them how good of a time that is.
That's pretty good.
And what pace you were running.
That's that's 8 minutes 17 seconds per mile pace. So that was pretty good.
26.2 miles.
Yeah, and the truth is the wheels came off near the end because I hadn't had the training. Gevura did great that day. She finished it. She jogged with a friend. And then after that, I was hooked. I'm like, okay. Then I discovered there was this thing called the Boston Marathon. The Boston Marathon is an elite marathon. Well, the thing about my life and Gevura's too is that I don't like to do things half-baked. I'm like, we're either all in or we're not in at all. That's how it's going to fly over here. I'm like, so you know what? Who says that I'm not allowed to be in the Boston Marathon? What a chutzpah.
Right.
If I have to get a time,
you have to qualify for it.
If I have to get
very elite.
If I have to get a qualifying time for the Boston, so fine, I'll get it. And which at the time was for that, and as you get a little bit older, it gets a little bit easier. So at that time, for that age group that I was in, it was 3 hours 10 minutes. So suddenly, this number, 3 hours 10 minutes, became this big number in my life, which is 7 minutes 15 seconds per mile. And I set myself, and I set my goal, and I tried, and I tried, and I tried. And in
running a lot of marathons.
Let's see for a second. In November of 2021, I missed it by 23 seconds. I ran 3 hours 10 minutes, 23 seconds at the Rehoboth Beach Marathon in Delaware. And it turns out, had I got that time of 3:10 on the nose, I would have got into this year's Boston Marathon. And I was really, really upset. But you know what? It taught me very important spiritual goal, spiritual message in life, which is, you can sometimes think that you're doing everything right, but actually you miss getting to your goal by a very, very small note. I said to our shul on Kol Nidre, Baruch Hashem, I have the opportunity to share a message with everybody in Kol Nidre. I said to the folks in the shul, I'm like, this is our time to think, are we trying to get to our end goal? And are we going to be there in the time that we want to be? Are we going to achieve what we've done, what we wanted to achieve in this world? Or are we going to be 23 seconds short? We don't want to be 23 seconds short. And as we stand there on Kol Nidre, we make up the gap. We close the gap of that 23 seconds, or maybe in some people's cases, I know mine, it's a lot more than 23 seconds spiritually. We close that gap. That's what Yom Kippur is all about. We close the gap. And so I took a really great message from that. And so in November of 2022, I ran 3 hours, 8 minutes, and 32 seconds in the Philadelphia Marathon, a crazy windy day.
It was 26 degrees.
And
it was insane. And it was by the river.
It's even windier.
It's hard to, you can't really convey how cold it was.
So
so cold.
So hopefully for the Boston 2024 marathon, I think that it should be good enough, because I'll actually be in the next age group after that. So I'll have a big buffer without going into too many technical details. But, it became a sort of a labor. It wasn't easy, but I've tried to take a spiritual message from it and grow. And so that's a long-winded answer, but
like a month before you had missed it.
Yeah.
Or was it 2 months before?
I tried twice. I ran 4 marathons in 2022, and I finally nailed it on the fourth of those. So it did feel quite exhilarating. I'm not going to lie, but that said, I'm definitely trying to use the physical exhilaration to grow spiritually, because ultimately life isn't about running a fast time in a marathon. Like, they're not, I keep saying and thinking to myself, like, like after 120 years, like, they're not going to write my PR in the marathon on my gravestone. Like, they're going to write, that's not going to be what they're going to talk about at Shiva. Like, I know that sounds a little bit morbid, but on the other hand, we also have to think about what is our legacy, what are we leaving behind, and what is what spiritual goals and achievements are we creating for ourselves in this world. Anyway, that's a long-winded story. Gevura, do you want to? She's tired.
Sorry.
I know.
I think that, I'm sorry. And I just want to explain the context and why I think for us running so many half marathons and marathons is really interesting, is because it's not really a rabbi sport, meaning most races are on Saturdays.
No, it's 50-50.
Well,
there are a lot on Sundays, actually.
Okay, so 50-50, but that already eliminates half the races. But additionally, I guess what I mean by that is that most people, like a marathon, we're talking about it fairly casually, but a marathon is like a huge endeavor. And it's not just physical energy. It's like a marathon is like an emotional race. Like at this year's Philly marathon, when I finished, I just couldn't stop crying.
Well, because Gevura broke. Well, so that day when I got my Boston qualifying time, Gevura broke 5 hours for the first time, which she'd been trying to do. That was her fifth marathon, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I'd been trying for a long time. But even if I hadn't
fifth or sixth
finished, it's just a very. I mean, it defies nature. Like people, like running for 26 miles is a lot.
It's pretty far.
You have to dig deep.
I have done one. Yeah, I did 150K, which is like 31 and a bit miles.
Crazy.
But that was pretty intense. But that was more of like a trail run. But
what was I saying about your experience? So even if you run on Sunday, talking to the majority of the marathon runners, it's like a whole weekend for them. The day before, you're relaxing in your hotel room. You're like visualizing. A lot of people will like drive through the course to like envision themselves. And like for us on Saturdays, we are working very, very, very hard, like very hard, thank God. And it's just nonstop from the second we wake up. So like last night, for example, this past weekend, we had a really big Shabbaton. And we didn't get home till like 11 last night. And then the kids weren't even home. And then to get, there's not so many marathons or half marathons. You have to find them there. Right. And then for us, like they had to be within a drive, because we're not going to, we don't usually take off on Shabbat unless it's for family or for, traveling to Israel or whatever. So like we had to wake up I had my alarm set for 5:50 this morning. After getting home at 11:30.
So we just ran a half marathon in Queens around Corona Park, which that was kind of
where the U.S. Open is. So it's 13 miles, and it's like a big deal. It's a lot. So I apologize for yawning, but I will say that I think both of us share that like for me, I'm not a natural athlete. I'm not thin. I'm not built like a runner. It's not easy for me, but I feel that like when we're learning how to do a marathon or a half marathon, or we sometimes do a 10-mile race or whatever. I did 2 triathlons this summer. That was wild.
Wow.
Signed up for a third, but I had bike malfunction. Triathlons are very technical, but anyways, is that it's not just about the running. It's so analogous with so many things in life. Setting a goal, sticking with it, digging deep. Like for me, Binyomin isn't like this. He actually enjoys running. I like swimming. I swim a lot, and I don't find swimming that hard because I grew up swimming. I was on a swim team for my whole childhood and even through high school. For me, running is really hard. Like every step is difficult. But I just, I feel like for me, like even the day of the Philly Marathon, this might sound stupid, and I had parked a mile away. We dropped my husband off because he was serious. I parked a mile away, so I had to walk a mile. It was still dark out at the time, freezing cold. Then the marathon started. My headphones broke and weren't working, so I had to run. You're not really supposed to listen to music while you're doing marathons, but anyways, for me, it's my lifeline. So I was just thinking, like, I'm so cold. Why am I think I said I didn't want to do it even that morning. That morning, he's like, get out of bed. I'm like, I don't want to.
Yeah, you know what's been really nice about it is that we actually encourage each other. We push each other.
Encourage each other.
Listen, like I actually retired on Wednesday from racing. I decided that's it. You know what? I'm done. It's too distracting. There's a lot of there's a lot of Torah I've got to learn. There's a lot of things in life. I don't want to like get too many clicky ankles and stuff like that. I'm like, it's good. Like I've my PRs are way more than I thought I'd ever get. Like I've broken 1:30 and a half marathon. I've broken a 20-minute 5K. Like these are ridiculous times for like a guy who's in his middle age, like who's never such a runner. Like I don't know how I've done it. I haven't even put excessive mileage in. Like I've just had determination and been, fairly smart with my training. But so I retired. So I retired on Wednesday, and Friday's like Gevura's like, come with me to Queens on Sunday morning. We're doing a half marathon. Please, will you come? And so I'm like, okay, fine. I'll sign us up. It wasn't too expensive. That encouraged me. Some of these races are a little too expensive. That one wasn't too bad. And so I guess I'm already out of retirement. It was a 2-day retirement. But
we play it many times, and our kids all cry and say you have to do it.
Yeah, but that's such a really nice thing. Then also, it's just like it's something that we found to do together. It's healthy. It's clean. It's good for our minds. It's like a bit of a date. We travel there together, and like it helps us clear our minds so we can do our job and serve Hashem. Like that's really how we have to look at it. For other people, it's sort of other people it becomes their life. I like that. That's all there is. Like I think that's a mistake. Everything for a Jew has to be this is a means to serve Hashem in a deeper way. And so at every step of life, everything we do, we always have to ask ourselves, is that helping me achieve that goal? And it's partly why I sort of like wanted to retire, because I'm not sure that it is right now. But after a little more reflection, I do. It's very good for my mental health and my physical health. Certainly, it's important. It's important to stay in shape, and everything has to be tempered. It doesn't. Yeah.
What I was gonna say is that in the Philly and we've done a few cold races, really cold races in the winter. Because it's really a summer and spring and fall sport, but we somehow ran a lot this winter, actually. But anyhow, I was just thinking, I always think about like lahavdil, like Jews in very difficult circumstances where they're cold. And I thought I'm not being forced. I'm not, in Europe. This isn't a death march, thank God. And like both of us, like something that we do a lot, I guess, is daven while we're running. Like for me, like I'm the whole time saying, please Hashem, please, like this doesn't make sense. I shouldn't be able to do this feat. It's like a little bit defies nature for me because I don't train very well. I'm not very disciplined, but like both of us will try to like choose a pasuk or like an idea or like a manifestation during like a big race, like a marathon or half marathon. Like sometimes, what have yours been like?
Well, today I was just going around saying thank you Hashem, Joe and Yukon, just keep going over that in my mind, just as like it's like some people like to meditate, and obviously there's a concept of hisbodedus in, Hasidus, meditation, contemplation in a sort of a quiet space. For me, my meditation comes from when I'm running, through seeing a nigun, or just saying the same thing over and over again, or trying to talk down to Hashem, or sort of having clarity in thought. Like for me, it's been very good in that way, which again is another reason why I do hope to try and continue, because I do feel it is a additional important channel for me in my service of Hashem.
Yeah, I say Ein Od Malvado, like there's only Hashem a lot. And I also say Hashem Oz Li'amo Yutain, like Hashem, you're the one giving strength to our people, and that God willing, just like we've been granted physical strength so often every time we try, that we should also have, spiritual strength, emotional strength to do what we need to do.
That's okay. I want you to understand that you did a marathon. This is where you get tired.
You have any
so
questions?
Yeah, I wanted to transition in a little bit about what you do as your job together. That as a couple, you do the running. It helps you, the physical aspect, and I love all the beauty that you're tying into the spirituality. But as a couple, besides in your community, what is your overall role? You have a shul mainly? Is it an organization that you run? Okay. What are your day in, day out responsibilities, weekly responsibilities? How do you go about that? You're conferring with each other. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Aish HaChaim and Aish, as I said earlier in the conversation, joined together in basically January 1st, 2019. And Aish HaChaim does have a synagogue component. We have holidays and Shabbos services, and so that's sort of like that takes a little bit of our time. Fridays and Shabbos especially.
Bar mitzvahs, weddings.
Yeah, so we try. So we definitely have like the pastoral care, and there's definitely some counseling involved in helping people through some difficult situations. So there's sort of like the shul community side of what we do, but we also try and do outreach, reaching out to Jews who perhaps aren't necessarily so observant, or haven't had the chance to have a deep, strong Torah education, Jewish education. So we said a lot of people learning, a lot of one-on-ones I found to be really the most effective way to really just sort of get close to somebody and really actually study in a really meaningful way. But we have various classes and programs we put on for the community all throughout the year, different types of programs, different types of classes. And so we help organize and facilitate and teach that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just taking care of the community. And like I know that there's different opinions on this and a lot of people don't agree, but we both felt very, very, very strongly that if Binyomin was going to do what he did and be the rabbi, we would only accept that if I was paid full time, because we feel very passionately that, for various reasons, like mostly Binyomin works with men and I work with women. And we're pretty strict on that. And we feel very passionately and strongly in that, because I think that because it's really a deep emotional soul connection. So for like the ladies in our shul and in our city, I'm very available, and it could be anything. It could be from seeing, people's kids' school play to, like being there when people lose people, when people are sick, parenting challenges, marriage challenges. I always say, guys, call me when things are going well, please. Because those aren't the majority of our calls, unfortunately. So we just, but I mean, the thing is that like outreach and the way we do outreach is a lifestyle. And I don't know how it works for other people. I mean, there are other models, but for us, like we're both all in. So, like on days that I'm teaching, that means Binyomin doing carpool and dinner and laundry and, all of that. And that's part of, how he feels like his job is to do those things while I'm doing my thing. Because we're also like very passionate about parenting, and we try for our kids not to live a life where their parents are both always so busy. It's difficult. I mean, it's not just I guess it's not unique in our professions, but, and our kids are really part of, that's when I joked when I said our kids are in the family business. Like we had a single Shabbaton, and one of the amazing ladies who was there was talking about if she should get back together with someone or not. And my 10-year-old was giving her his opinion and his advice. And she wrote to me today, Simcha is so smart. Like, I think I am going to go with what he said. And, but also our kids are really proud of what we do. And they're in it too. And they give up their bedroom sometimes, and they give up a lot of their parents' time because they know that it's important. And it's nonstop. And I think part of why, we merit to be successful at what we do is because we're both all in it. And, we're both very supportive of each other, which is a real blessing.
But to be clear, Gevura never stops. I just want to make this clear. Gevura just goes. The people are calling her all day. She's learning with people, meeting with people, organizing things. She actually has a Hamantash and bake in a few hours, and we want to take our kids out on a walk, so we should probably do that soon. But she never ever stops. I just want to make that clear. No. I'm saying this in a nice way.
Yeah, I know.
No, she is extremely busy. No, it's not. No. I'm saying not.
Well, he's always saying to people when they come to him, "Why isn't your wife responding to my message?"
No, not to embarrass her. God forbid. It's the opposite, which is really the question was, what do we do? Like Gevura, I just want to make it clear. Like Gevura fully dedicates herself to the community. Like
and so do you. But I'll just give you an example. Like we had a Shabbaton, like I mentioned yesterday, so that's why it's on my mind. And it ended up raining a lot Friday night. So instead of, we live in a pretty geographically diverse neighborhood. And so instead of walking to the Oneg where we planned to be after dinner, we stayed in shul, and all the hot water got drank because, people were hot cups after dinner.
So, is that what it was?
Yeah, that's what happened.
Oh, that's what happened.
Oh, you didn't realize that?
Makes sense. Yeah, they drank a lot of tea.
So then, after we're finally, to everybody at midnight, the building's closed, our guard wants to go home, we got to go, we're home. At 6 a.m., we're up. Binyomin was learning, and he was saying to me, that I don't think there's a lot of hot water at shul. So before I go to shul, where I have to move the tables and arrange the chairs, I'm going to go walk to the host's house with thermoses, walk to shul, get thermoses, walk to the host house, get hot water, because he's like, it's a single Shabbaton. I want everyone to be their best selves, and the kind of people who don't drink coffee when they need coffee, because people had asked us, will there be coffee there? So, he said yesterday, I know that you're saying I'm the one who's so busy, but yesterday, Binyomin was like, I think I walked 13 miles, from each of the locations. No, it is
true. So the thing is, another reason why I run, actually, this is a serious point, is because I don't know if I could do my job if I didn't. Yesterday, my legs were tighter by the end of the day than they are at the end. Certainly at the end of a half marathon, about the same. I swear, I really mean, I'm not joking. I'm not exaggerating. It was really the same feeling or more or harder, absolute exhaustion in my legs.
Because it's you
just
have to
going the whole day.
Daven mincha at your shul and then walk to where the third wheel was. And
if I didn't keep fit and do the running, I couldn't do my job properly. So actually, there's really another reason why I should carry on with it, and why I guess
you're out of retirement.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, Baruch Hashem. But we keep busy. We're trying to do what we can for this community and for our organization, and be successful in our job, and help Jewish people connect with their heritage and their tradition. And that's what motivates us. We were fortunate enough to have some great people in our life in our early 20s who helped show us the light of Torah, and so we're trying to continue to extend the light of Hashem's Torah in this world by doing the same thing in a holy way.
Beautiful, beautiful. So we're going to end with 2 questions. You ready? Okay. One I might know the answer already, but the other one I don't. So you were mentioning it's your anniversary coming up.
Mm-hmm.
All I know, I'm not doing the math right now. This episode might even actually come out on your anniversary. But what do you have plans for your anniversary? Like what you going to do? Just the 2 of you, maybe something. Or is it a surprise that you're surprising her with something?
I have jury duty on my anniversary. I already got out of because it was on a holiday. Was it Erev Shabbos?
I'm finding this out now for the first time, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay, and he had all these plans, Gevura. You ruined it.
Well, it's actually interesting because something that I don't know if this helps other people, but something that does help us a lot is that nights are very, very, very hectic with our work and our kids. So we mostly go out during the day. And the cool thing is that we like doing the same thing. So we're neither of us, I mean, I guess you could tell this by now, but neither of us are like a sit and relax kind of people. Like we don't
Right.
can count on my hand the number of times in our whole marriage we've gone out to dinner together, because it's just not like we don't enjoy it.
Right.
So we like to hike. We like to be active together.
Yeah, I mean, I have been thinking about what to do actually as it happens.
Okay.
I was going to try and surprise her, but now apparently she's going to be in court.
Well, I'm hoping most of the time when you're summoned for jury duty, it doesn't come to fruition.
Come to fruition, right? When you're there, they let you go. Usually you could get out of it by saying you have kids of school age. I think sometimes because of childcare.
At once, but it got delayed once. I'm gonna try to get out of it. I mean, like Binyomin's actually, believe it or not, better at these things than me. Like he sometimes does like scavenger hunts and gets the kids involved in gifts and gets the kids involved in gifts for me. I'm pretty boring.
Oh, so I like that. That's very nice.
We make smoothies. We try to make smoothies for each other every day. That's the truth.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. So Rabbi Davis, you have to have that thoughts percolating now that we brought out to your attention that she'll be busy.
We'll keep you posted.
Well, keep me posted. The other thing I always like to ask the couples, and this might bring us right back to where we started, but maybe not. I always like to ask if you could think of a song or a movie or a book that would represent your relationship, what would it be? So now it might go back to that first song, The Sign, but maybe not.
I mean, I think it really does, to be honest. I do listen to that song quite often.
We both run to it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I not to be too cliched here, but it has sort of set the stage. I've always been planning to get a big sign in front of our house I wanted to name our house Fields of Gold, actually, but
we should do that for anniversary.
We don't technically own this house that we live in, so I would feel a bit strange about putting a sign. We could maybe do that. Sadeh Zahav. So, I think it really does. I mean, it's a song of, listen, I'm not saying the answer to my question from 20 years ago, what do you think about that is, I don't particularly love comparing Fields of Gold to Shir HaShirim, Song of Songs, to be perfectly blunt. I think the two are very different domains, and so, but that said, I think the words of that song are about hope and love and joy and joy. And I think that's really important to try and have throughout marriage. Life can take its toll. Things happen. Experiences are not always easy. And, that sort of youthfulness and that love and that silliness and that spark from the early years of marriage, like that, I always feel like if a couple could just bring that with them, like through the hard times and through the years and then into the decades, like it could just be a lot better. And it's not easy. I'm not pretending that any of this is easy. I just met somebody that he just, I don't want to say too much, but like whatever, after being married for really quite a long time, having a family, like got divorced after, later on in life. And then I just think to myself, like, what happened? Like, what happened to that joy and that simcha and that love and that silliness and that passion that I'm sure they had in their 20s? Like, where did that go? So like a song like Fields of Gold, like sort of can remind us of like, there was this field, there was this vision, and there was this vision of gold, and it was beauty, and it was splendor, and it was joy, and it was happiness, and it was tranquility, and everything was shiny and sparkly, and we felt so good, and we felt like kings and queens in it. And that's how we felt when we were young in this field together. And that's why we wanted to make a life together. And then this has happened, and that's happened, and this person's, you've lost a job, and maybe someone's had a difficulty with a child, or whatever it is, chas v'chalila. And suddenly, like, the gold doesn't seem as bright and sparkly anymore. But if we can just try and tap into those memories of that field of gold from when we were young, perhaps we can find something in our heart that still reminds us of that, and we can sort of rub it off and make it shine again. And that's the work of life. That's the work of marriage.
I love that.
Yeah, and
that was really beautiful.
I'll just say very quickly that I it's a great question. And if you were to come to any, like, I teach a lot to young professionals and college students on relationships, and like something that, like, they say that I'm like, like, I'm the realist, I'm the destroyer of love. The truth is, by nature, I'm very in the clouds. I'm very romantic. I love music. I love novels. I love fiction. But I think if there's one area that we have to be super careful of believing the lies of fiction, it's love, dating, romance, and marriage. And like I always say to my students, like, I know that you think you want to be the star of a Nicholas Sparks book, but you don't, because someone always dies, and it's star-crossed love. And I think that like we make a mistake when we think that it's going to be, you know, like movies and songs and books, most of them are lies, and they're written by people trying to sell lies, and they end in the beginning, and marriage bells are the last scene of a film. And what I say to students is, I know that could feel heartbreaking to hear the Rebbetzin say that this is not the ideal, because it's so attractive and it feels so good and so shiny. But that doesn't mean that the other side has to be negative or bad. We just have to reimagine what love is. And from a Jewish perspective, love really comes from giving. And that if we can find the joy in giving, marriage has limitless potential, because there's so many opportunities to give in a relationship. And so I think that I just think that marriage is such a beautiful thing, but I think that we do it a little bit of a disservice when we sort of try to think that it's going to be like Hollywood. Like I have a friend who said to me that her husband said to her, she used to always complain to her husband, you never say all the nice things that they say in the movies. And he said, that's because I don't have a Hollywood writer whispering it in my ear. They're not saying it either. This is what people imagine that they would want. So I think that thank God we have a lot of beauty, but it's from us building it. You know, it's not easy. It's not simple.
Wow. So thank you so much. We've been schmoozing a long time. I know you have to go.
I know you have to go too, and I'm sorry that
thank you.
No. If anybody wanted to contact the two of you, I know you're in your area, but maybe people are listening to this and they're enjoying the words that you have to say. What would be the best way for them to reach out to you?
BinyominDavis@gmail.com. It's my name.
Okay.
BINYOMIN Davis@gmail.com. And Gevura's name's there at the corner of the screen. Gevura Davis@gmail.com.
But my husband's much better at responding to messages.
Yeah, email me. Don't bother you guys. Don't email her. Just send
Don't bother Gevura. Just do it to Binyomin, and you're good to go.
I respond.
No, I've got really good at responding to emails, because getting close to a month ago now, I decided I'm going to cut myself off from all media and all these stupid things that these phones have distracted us with over the past decade, and just try and focus on what I'm supposed to be doing in life. And I've become a lot more functional and a lot more focused on my vote as Hashem. So I can't. I'm not saying to everybody that they should ditch their iPhone or not look at the news. But for me, it's just what I personally needed to do. And so, not that I was bad at answering emails before, but there's a lot of messaging in life, texts and WhatsApp and emails and phone calls to respond to. Like, it's just so overwhelming. And so I feel like in this world, like, unless you're just fully focused on it, you're going to things just drop through the cracks. And as our organization grows and we get busier and busier, like, we get more messaging. So
a lot of messages.
Yeah,
thank God. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And everybody that's listening and watching, hope you enjoyed our story. And thank you for listening, and be in touch.
Thank you.